Illuminated Letters with Mrs. Palmer.
Hello everybody, Mrs. Palmer here. So I'm going to go through a couple of tips and tricks of how you could draw some illuminated letters.
In medieval times, all books were handwritten. They were seen as very precious works of art, and you had to be a very skilled person to produce them. It wasn't something that anyone could do. Now, the manuscripts were called illuminated because the letters and the pictures included in these manuscripts were often decorated with gold and silver and colour and pattern that brought colour and vibrancy to the page. The word illuminated comes from the Latin word illuminare, meaning to light up. An illuminated letter was usually the first letter of a page or paragraph. It was drawn much bigger than the rest of the text, and it was more colourful, metallic, or decorated. Images and illustrations were sometimes added to make the letter even more interesting or detailed. At the time that these were first used, not many people could read, so sometimes the illuminated letters were something to help tell the story. The illustrations would work like clues for the people that couldn't read. You can see that this letter that's been illuminated has been decorated with items and objects that start with the letter that's been illuminated, B. You can see a bird, a bubble, a book, the colour blue, bluebells, a bee, and I could go on, and you could probably spot a lot more than I can.
So you can see I've started off by drawing a little rectangle here. I've done 10 centimetres by 12 centimetres, but you can do any size that you like. Sometimes it's easier to do a little miniature one on the side and practice your design in here before you begin. Some illuminated letters have a frame, so you could draw a frame around your rectangle. Some illuminated letters have a second frame or shape inside. Some illuminated letters have just a simple box around the outside and have the letter inside, for example, an S. And then they've decorated the letter. So it's really up to you where your decoration goes. I'm going to choose a letter. I'm going to choose S because I've done it over here and I quite like the shape of it on here, but it can be any letter that you like. And the first thing that I'm going to do is really lightly with my pencil, I'm going to put the shape of my letter really lightly. The reason I'm doing it lightly is that if I need to rub it out, it's much, much easier to rub out a light pencil line than it is a hard pencil line. I'll show you what I mean. So here, my camera comes a little bit closer. Here's a light pencil line. And here's a hard pencil line where I've put a lot of pressure on the paper. If I rub that light pencil line, it's barely noticeable. If I rub this thicker, harder pencil line, although I've rubbed it out, you can still see a trace of the line there. So going back over to my big piece here, my big letter, I've done a really light pencil line just to show the shape. Now, if I'm feeling brave, what I might do is I might embellish this letter by making it stand out. So I'm going to put some different styles on this letter, perhaps to make it stand out, to make it look a little bit different on the page. And again, I've done that with light pencil lines. I would quite like to give my letter a frame. I can choose to do that with a ruler if I want to make it look really uniform and straight. Or I can do it with sketchy lines like this. I'm going to put some details on my edge of my frame, like this. Just a little bit of detail, a little bit of extra detail. I'm rushing this a little bit, boys and girls, so you're going to have a bit more time than me to make your shapes a little bit more uniform or regular, like me. Okay, so I've put a little bit of a frame around my picture, little diagonal lines in the corners to make it look like it's a little bit more 3D. Now, illuminated letters, remember, started a sentence. So this, for example, could be the first letter of the word sentence. And it would have looked a little bit like that. So all of my detail and all of my designing is going to be on this first letter. Now, like I showed you before, some illuminated letters decorated just the frame and around it. Some illuminated letters filled the space with lots of different images. The images would either give it a bit of a hint or a tip as to what the text was going to say afterwards, or it would just decorate the letter to make it stand out to the reader. Sometimes the letter and the decoration matched. So the decoration might be all things that begin with S. So I might have a snake in the corner. I might have some snow or a sunshine. I might have some flowers that begin with the letter S, for example. I'm going to just decorate my letter in an embellishing way, so perhaps with details and patterns. I'm going to, first of all though, now I'm happy with the shape of my letter, I'm going to do a heavier pencil line around the outside so that it stands out a little bit more. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to decorate around the outside. So here, I'm going to imagine it's a little bit like a springtime picture. I'm going to put some leaves on the side. I'm going to put some flowers here. I'm going to put some grass and some ground along the bottom so it looks like the S is sitting on the grass and the ground. I'm going to try and give the illusion that I've got some ivy wrapped around the outside of my letter. So imagine it. It's gone behind. It's going above. It's gone behind. It's going over the top. It's going behind. It's going over the top. It's going behind. And I can use that little line now to draw little leaves, little patterns, over the top. Okay, so it looks like I've got something wrapped around my letter. So there's a couple of ideas to get you started, but let's talk about colour, because illuminated letter was not just in plain boring kind of decoration, because it was supposed to stand out. The word illuminated in itself means to stand out, to shine. So I could add colour. Do that with some coloured pencils. Remember, the gold challenge was to use mixed media, more than one media. So I might use some pencils to start, and maybe some pencils along the bottom. I'm going to do this quite quickly so that you can see what I mean. I'm going to add some more colour on my ivy here, that I've wrapped around my letter. I might add some colour to the actual letter itself if I wanted to, or the background. So I could shade the background in a colour to make that a little bit more interesting for the reader. Remember, the harder, the more pressure I put on, the more dark my colour and intense my colour will be. Or I might challenge myself to use multi or mixed media. So I've got some pens here. I'm going to use the pens as well as coloured pencils, maybe to do some outlining. So maybe go down some outlining there with that pen, and I might use pencil on the inside. Use what you've got in your house, because different houses are going to have different equipment inside. Some illuminated letters would have used metallics to make them really stand out. I've got a couple of metallic pens here. You might not have these in your home. Please don't worry if you haven't. If you have, though, you could use metallic pens to make the letters stand out even more. So I'm going to put some gold on my lettering here to make it stand out that even more. Now you might find that you need to do the metallic first. Mrs. Palmer's probably done this the wrong way around. But you can see that the effect that the metallic pens and the metallic might have on your illuminated letter. Okay. Now, some of you might want to be challenged even further by not just using white paper. You might be lucky to have some coloured paper in your house. So here is some black paper that I had in my house. Please don't worry, you might not have these, but you might have different coloured paper that you might want to use, but the rules would still be the same. So I'm going to do the first letter of my first name for this one. So remember, the same as before, really light to start with. Embellish your letter, make it in a different style. And then I'm going to show you what the effect that the metallics have on the dark paper, so that might make it stand out even more. Now remember, the same rules apply. You can still, I'm brushing here, put patterns and frames around the outside. Here's some ideas for frames. Draw another square or rectangle around the outside. And then diagonal lines will give you the effect of a 3D frame. Here's another one. This is a popular one in my class, to make it look like it's almost torn paper around the outside, or a piece of parchment. Some children in my class and in other classes in Year 6 have been practicing how to do banners. So you might want to experiment with banners, perhaps. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can make your illuminated letter stand out. Good luck, everybody.